Breakthrough anti-obesity medications led by Ozempic were one of the most disruptive stock and sector stories of the year, hitting a bunch of different companies. Too many to even remember, from airlines, of course, the foods. Arun Sundaram joins us from CFRA. The kidney dialysis centers, the healthcare stocks, at one point the airlines. I mean, all right, so Arun, when you look at what survived, what is still in contest, I guess, by this development, what's the read right now going into next year?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Oliver. Yeah, so, we think the risk related to this whole Ozempic effect is a bit overblown, especially as it relates to food and beverage stocks.
Really?
It was really back in October of this year is when Walmart's U.S. CEO came out in an interview and said that people who were taking these drugs had a slight decrease in food consumption. And when that was made, that announcement was made, it kind of sent shockwaves throughout the packaged foods and beverage manufacturers. You saw these stocks just really crash. And then with the media kind of, I think, amplified it a little bit, and recently in Walmart's Q3 earnings call, they kind of walked back those comments, and they kind of said things like, yeah, I mean, the impact is not material right now, but it's something that we're watching. And really all packaged food companies, food and beverage manufacturers have kind of said the same thing. They're saying they're not seeing any impact right now, but it's something that they're watching. And that's kind of, our thesis as well. It's something that, we think food companies will watch over the long term, but over the next 2 to 3 years, we don't see this whole Ozempic effect having a material impact on food and beverage companies.
How much depends on how the studies come back on the reflux people are having in their digestive system and stomach pain, and a few of those reports that are currently, kind of coming to the forefront a little bit more than they were a couple months ago?
Yeah, that's just one factor, I think, limiting adoption of these drugs. I think there's several factors that will limit adoption for these drugs over the next 3 to 5 years. Another factor is affordability issues, especially if you don't have insurance. These drugs can cost over $12,000 a year. And then also regarding insurance, a lot of insurance companies aren't covering these drugs. Even Medicare, for example, doesn't cover any drug related to weight loss, and that probably won't change until 2027 at the earliest. So we see this adoption of these drugs being pretty slow and steady, probably going to take over the next decade. And over that next decade, food and beverage manufacturers will adapt. They'll innovate. They'll renovate their portfolio. They'll do things like introduce smaller pack sizes if people want to eat less foods. Maybe they'll change their ingredients in some of their foods. So they have time to adapt. So that's why, another reason why we don't think, these risks are to be overly worried about.
Well, we sure did a heck of a round trip in McDonald's all the way back towards records and many others that got hit pretty hard. It seems like then an argument is that while it might be disruptive to, say, like a dialysis center or kind of some of the more extreme medical use overlap, that's not your sector, though. The discretionary type of a casual Ozempic user because it's cool, it may not exist. That might have been like an internet, memification of the story for a couple months. I could buy that.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. I think this whole topic has been a bit overblown. I don't think we should be buying apparel stocks because people are going to be losing weight and buying smaller pant sizes. I just think that's too much of a stretch to make right now.
Get it? Stretch. Okay. So Arun, well, what do you like going into next year then? Who's got the most potential to kind of reassert their footing?
Yeah, so our top 2 picks in packaged foods are Mondelez International and the Kraft Heinz company. We made upgrades on both these stocks a few months ago when this whole Ozempic effect had effects on these stocks. And then in the beverage industry, beverage manufacturing industry, our top 2 picks there are Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So of the two in sub industries, we like Mondelez, Kraft Heinz, Coke and Pepsi. These are just very stable earnings companies. They all have strong pricing power. I think we talk a lot about pricing power this year. I think pricing power will matter more in 2024 because when others are cutting price, it's the companies that are going to be keeping price stable or the ones that are going to be winners. And I think these 4 companies have that pricing power, and so we should see strong earnings growth in 2024 for these 4.
What are we talking? Are we talking double digits, high single digits?
Most likely high single digits for companies like Mondelez, Coke, and Pepsi. Kraft Heinz maybe in the mid single digits, to high single digits earnings growth. A lot of it's going to be driven by the fact that volume trends should improve. Volumes have been down for a lot of these companies this past year, and some companies more than others. But I think volume trends will improve in 2024, and that can provide some leverage to the bottom line as well.
All right. Okay, so we're not talking disruption here. There's still companies that adapt for the most part, but after the beatdown that they had, the relative underperformance to the market, kind of the opportunity to reassert valuations.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think a lot of these companies too, the valuations are down. If you look at packaged food stocks, first of all, the price performance of packaged food stocks have been quite poor this year, down about 20%. Companies like Kraft Heinz, for example, is trading around 12 times forward earnings. Historically, it's traded around 16 times. It's a pretty steep discount. And I think another thing is next year we'll start talking more about dividend yields. Investors didn't really care so much about dividend yields this year, given where interest rates were. But especially if interest rates go down next year, I think dividend yields will be more attractive. And for companies like Kraft Heinz, you can get about a 5% dividend yield right there. So another reason to be bullish on packaged foods.
Juicy. All right. Nice little payout there while you wait for the Ozempic mania to fade. Thank you very much, Arun. Appreciate your commentary throughout the year. Have a great holiday. Arun Sundaram, CFRA Research.